Hi, slipcor here. Welcome to devlog number 3 of MiniGolf. Here's a little menu GUI that I added to the game. It will have two functions. One, switch the controlling between click, drag, release and WASD. Two, switch the scoring between strokes being counted and obstacles or walls hit. Obviously it would make sense to switch both alike, but I value flexibility over sense. So this is how the menu is being added. We have an input action, menu, toggle. And when we press the button, which we can define somewhere else, we check if the My Options is visible. If it is, we just hide it and call the remove and hide function. If it is not though, we have to create the widget. We do this by create single player options menu widget. This is the name I gave it. Then we set this to the options variable and add it to the viewport. Next we call the GUI function set input mode UI only, so we do not rotate the camera but we move a mouse cursor. Then we show the mouse cursor. Finally we update the visibility boolean. Here are some more events in the single player option menu. We have the slider value update. This is a built-in event reaction to changing a slider's value. We have two sliders and their value will be basically decided on whether their value, which can be between 0 and 1, is above 0.5. If they are above, we lock them into the right position. Otherwise, we lock them into the left position. On the right side, we have an update for the slider position description. Basically, if the setting is set to control via WASD, the description should say so WASD to row. Otherwise, it should say click, drag and release. About the scoring, if we set it to have timed scoring, we want to display this time taken. Otherwise, we measure the strokes and show strokes. So this is how the snapping to specific values works. We have a function that takes a slider and the amount of steps we want to allow. For mathematical reasons, we always take the steps 0 base. Now I start by multiplying the amount of steps that we have by 100 and scale that by the amount the slider is pushed to the right. So this is 100 times the steps we want to allow. As you see in the example, the only allowed steps shall be 1, 100, 200. We then divide this by 100. This part of the function is static. Then we divide the result by the steps we want to allow, resulting in a step rounded 0 to 1 value. This is the basic heart of the function. On the right you see the crucial rounding division, only allowing 0, 1 and 2 in our case. And the red 100 is there to show room for optimization, as this will always be 100 and can thus be removed. Right, let's apply this. We have the slider value update and we pull out the snap to value function call. Then we expand a little bit to have more space and get both sliders to feed them into the function, and we set the steps. So by default, we shoot the ball by click and drag. Putting the slider over does not seem to snap correctly. Or does it? Nope. I guess we have to look at this. I tried to listen to a different event, the on mouse capture begin event. Feeding this into the same inputs and let's see if that helps. Sadly it does not, so we have to find something else. Let's keep looking. I did not record this apparently, but what I was apparently missing is setting this value that we calculate here to the actual slider. So setting the slider's position. So off camera I added a set value call to the slider that was provided, which the value that we calculated, and we can see that it works here. Still, one thing we have to fix is that the values we select do not persist, or the selections do not reflect the underlying values. I did that the next day. After looking around for values during runtime, I noticed that the values did neither save when closing, nor were they loaded when creating or showing the widget. So first, I implemented the pre-construct event so that the slider values could be updated with the corresponding float settings. Then I noticed that the value that the slider should have been snapping to was never set to the float properly, so adding the setting to the variables. Another thing that I totally missed to do is literally set the slider position to what it should snap to, so we have to set the value of the slider when snapping. Testing this finally showed what it should look like. The top slider only has 2 spots. The bottom one is set to allow 3 settings, just for testing. And it seems to work about fine. We can certainly fine-tune the response on changing a value. We do not have to put it 100% all the way until it snaps, but we should make it a 50% in between thing. When updating a value, we should eventually update the text description too. I already prepared events for that, we just need to call them. That seems to work. Now something that still was hard-coded is the position the ball was teleported to when falling out of bounds. This needs to be replaced with a function that I can use for that, but also for advancing the ball to the next spawn position, in case we hit the Go Cup. This will be covered by an event called Advance to Next Level, where the next position is automatically raised if the goal is reached, and if it was not, we get placed back at the start of the current hole. I started over implementing the calling of this method to start fresh. So basically when an actor hits the trigger box, we attempt to cast it to the ball blueprint. If this succeeded, we have a ball that successfully made it to the goal, and then we can call the event we've just created, and thus the ball will be teleported to the next hole. I added 2 arrays, one of the locations of the starting positions and one for the rotations of the starting points. These arrays will be filled over time with new hole starting point parameters. Here is how I read the array entries. There is an integer that defines the position to read, and every time we advance, we increment it, and then we read the current position and teleport there. Here's a little test I did with just some entries that were not even real done hole yet, just placeholder for me to teleport to see if the system works. I added a second hole to the game. To get to it, we obviously have to finish the first hole. We do that by a simple stroke. Here's how it plays out. You should aim to get around the corner in one shot, as there's no bumper to guide you, but the slope should do the rest for you. The first attempt was very slow, so I had to tweak the value for friction a bit, but I'll do this later. I think skipping the creation process is appropriate, but if you're into that stuff, give me a shout. I might include the process in the future, but it is about like 20 minutes of me messing around with shapes, so I don't know whether that is a thing someone would be interested in. So, as a sneak peek and a way to fill up a bit of time, I'll include the creating of bounds sped up. People have been waiting for a video for long enough. I have some pre-recorded footage left to edit, maybe 10 or 20 minutes that I deem presentable. I thought about streaming this. Anyone up for that? Anyway, that's it for this video. I'm not sure what the next video will be about, but I think that I mostly did level design and not much actual coding. So give me some feedback on whether you want to see my thoughts behind my level design. Not that there is much, but whatever. I will see you in the next one. Bye.